Today's episode comes with a trigger warning. Our film discussion contains suicidal feelings and actions. If you feel at any time you need support, dial 988 or visit 988lifeline.org. Hello, and welcome to Back Through the Lens, where two film school friends talk about movies through the haze of nostalgia, the good, the bad, and the ones that aren't quite how we remember them. I'm your host, Rachel, and with me is my co host, Joe. Today's movie is The Craft.
High school is tough enough, especially if you're a transfer student, but especially if you're a bit of an outsider. Best case scenario, you find some other outsiders to blend in with and attempt to feel less isolated. But sometimes you get more than you bargained for and end up with more tricks than treats.
Yeah, it's funny because, we went from our first episode of this season talking about like fun witches, even though they did technically eat children, so maybe not fun witches technically. But we went from like family friendly witches to like genuinely scary witches.
Mm-hmm. Gen X witches.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny to me because I watched this so much when I was younger that I think of them as my generation. I guess that's not technically true.
Yeah, not technically. Although I feel we're the what do they call us, geriatric millennials. I feel like we're on the edge of this made up, you know, sequence of time, and I feel more connection with my older sisters, like fashion and music and like the Pepsi generation stuff, than I do with the rest of our millennial youths.
Yeah, I could see that. It's funny actually. One of my friends had sent me something about like a Dawson's Creek reunion, and I was like, I've actually never watched Dawson's Creek, and she was like, what do you mean? Like, I thought everyone watched that when we were teenagers, like the CW, come on. And I was like, you know, I'm trying to think of what shows I watched when I was growing up. I don't think I ever watched the CW, but I can't really come up with anything I watched aside from the X Files, except that was in like middle school more than high school. So I don't know.
I watch a lot of X Files.
Maybe I watched more movies than
I think I
TV.
watch more movies. Yeah.
Although you'll be happy to hear that we do have an X Files connection in this episode, as per usual.
Yeah, I mean that show is like 20 years old, so
Yeah, par for the course here.
yeah.
Yep. We started with Hocus Pocus this season, kind of fun, family friendly witches.
Mm-hmm.
Now with the craft, we're moving on to we're slowly getting scarier.
These are definitely more serious switches,
Hmm.
at least as far as
Um,
like how the movie's portraying them.
oh, definitely. And there seem to be some more rules here with their witchcraft. First of all, there have to be four of them, which Hocus Pocus didn't seem to matter.
Yeah, maybe it's something to do with Hocus Pocus. Maybe they were like real witches, and in the craft, they are like practicing to become witches. At least three out of the four of them, because they do refer to Sarah as like a natural witch at one point, like
Oh,
very
right.
casually. So maybe they're like wannabe, and they're just doing the rituals and the practices to further get into Wiccan and occult. But maybe the Sanderson sisters were born into it. They seem to have like a natural power or flair for it.
Hmm. Flair for witchcraft.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So today's movie is The Craft, directed by Andrew Fleming, released May 3rd, 1996, and rated R. And just a reminder, there is a trigger warning on today's episode. We do discuss suicide.
New to LA, Sarah befriends a trio of teenage girls that are rumored to be witches. However, Sarah seems to also have some natural witch powers and in turn completes their coven. After casting individual spells, the girls soon find out they might have gone too far when their spells start to have negative impacts and Nancy continues to get power hungry.
So 1996, I was 11, right?
That maths.
That maths, yeah. I know that I saw this as a rental. I know that I remember seeing the trailer for this. I remember when it came out, I watched it at sleepovers all the time, which I know is something I seem to say a lot, but there are a lot of sleepovers involved in this time period of my life. And I remember at various sleepovers discussing if everyone was actually allowed to watch The Craft. And I specifically remember being at one where like one girl was like, "No, I can't watch it." And we were like, "Why?" Because it's rated R. Like, it's not, there's not anything that bad in it. And she was like, "No, because it's witches and it's demonic."
I mean, that's fair. If that goes against your personal beliefs, I understand. I do think this is a time period for us that we had a lot of sleepovers. I had friends stay over, or my cousin, and I knew, like, I watched more adult content stuff than most people my age. Um, but yeah, at sleepovers, that's where you kind of watch these kind of things that maybe you're not supposed to watch, and that's kind of what makes it fun.
Mm-hmm.
Horror movies or X Files, the creepy episodes, or
Mm-hmm.
Tales from the Crypt, staying up way too late, or just even SNL, staying up past your bedtime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's safe to say this was the age where I was getting more into, or I was increasingly allowed to watch R-rated movies depending on what they were. I'm sure for something like this, my parents were probably like, "Well, you already watched the X-Files, and this is pretty much that. It's probably rated R because it's quote unquote spooky." And, we all have our things that we're okay letting slide, I guess,
Yeah,
with the kids. So I'm not too surprised I was able to watch this. I also don't think it was like anything too like horrible for me to see as an 11-year-old. So
no, my first time was a rental for sure. About this age, my parents have already divorced and split, and we would like go to my mom's on the weekends, and
mhm.
we, depending on the weather, what we could or could not do. So we did a lot of movie rentals. There was this like mom and pop place near her place, and it like new rentals were X amount of dollars or whatever. But I'd always go to the horror section, and we'd just pick out a bunch of horror movies because they were like $1 for some reason. They did this deal: five
Mm,
movies, $5 for 5 days, and so
wow.
we just get a bunch of movies. Even though we were only there for a couple days, but it's how I watched a lot of horror movies.
Hmm.
And I think eventually my sister got this, or maybe I'd had it on VHS. I remember it floating around the house somewhere because I remember what the box looked like, and you're not getting
Hmm.
that from a movie rental place. So I know one of us owned it at some point.
Yeah. Was it literally floating around the house like a
If
witch?
only, yeah,
If only.
yeah,
So our pre-production starts with our screenwriter Peter Filardi meeting with the producer Doug Wick. Doug here had wanted to do some sort of teen horror movie. He had this idea about a high school movie, but with teen witches. Peter, the screenwriter, had already written a horror movie called Flatliners that came out in 1990. I believe this was remade somewhat recently, Flatliners, because I remember the main actress from the Vampire Diaries, when she left the show, that was like one of her first movie roles was Flatliners.
huh,
And at the time I didn't know it was a remake. Doug Wick, our producer, had also produced Working Girl, and if you're unfamiliar, that's what Melanie Griffith, 9 to 5,
yeah,
that whole thing.
yeah,
um, so he wanted to continue what he saw as this theme of female empowerment in the movies, however slight that might be. But he also had young daughters at the time. He said that he was also aware of witchcraft always being used as a metaphor for young women coming into their power. Filardi, the screenwriter, we'll call him Peter because I don't like saying that last name.
yeah. Flirty
Uh,
is hard to say.
yeah, he had been researching teen Satanism. I don't know if this was like for funsies or because he, was already developing some other story ideas. I meant to look this up. They said Ricky Casso, and I don't know what that is.
I wanted to just feel more comfortable and assume he was doing it for research purposes.
Okay, Ricky Casso is known as the Acid King. He was an American murderer who killed his friend, 17-year-old Gary Lars, in Northport, New York. The hell? Why was he researching this?
Acid King?
Did he kill people with acid?
Or did he drop a lot of acid?
Yes. He was under the influence of LSD and killed people. Okay. And oh, the Say You Love Satan killer. Murders took place during the Satanic Panic. Casso wore AC/DC t-shirts and was also a fan of Ozzy Osbourne, Black Sabbath, Judas Priest. That sounds about right. It couldn't have been the acid. It had to have been
The heavy
the
metal,
bands. Yeah. I was expecting him to be some sort of Satanist. During the attack, he allegedly commanded his victim to say you love Satan. So this was everyone's headspace, I guess. This screenwriter was researching this man and Satanism, and then the producer was like, we should empower young women.
yeah. Empower them to love
turn.
Satan. Yeah.
Right, I know. Okay. So this is Peter, the screenwriter's quote. Doug and I spoke for hours about magic, mushrooms, and ecstasy. I remember telling him that magic is historically a weapon of the underclass. It was originally practiced by people of the heath, or heathens, poor people without the power of a king, army, or church behind them. Our characters could not be popular, beautiful overlords of their school. For real magic to work, they would have to be outsiders with more than desires. Real magic requires need.
Okay.
Okay, I can see, obviously, we see that in the movie. I just feel like these couple of touchstones for what Peter had been researching makes it sound like this would have been a much, much darker film.
Yeah, some of that research. I mean, I get you kind of need, more info than you're going to put down on paper just to kind of
Right.
cross check yourself, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. And
cross reference.
The world, mm-hmm.
Yeah,
the world building and whatnot.
But yeah, some of it's it's a slippery slope. Some of it's a little dark there. I guess it depends on how into Satanism, I guess, you go.
Well, okay. Flip side, if you're thinking of the Salem witch trials, magic as women are accused of using, it's usually, not always, but usually women who are either single, widowed, aren't partnered with a man for whatever reason. Usually women who were self-sufficient, right? Taking care of themselves, making money on themselves. Oh, they must be witches.
That's a good point, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, even like he says, practiced by people of the heath became known as heathens. I mean, spinster comes from women who were able to like spin thread or yarn to sell, to like take care of themselves on their own, but then it became a negative word, right?
Right.
So we do get into that a little bit with this idea of not only magic serving a need that's maybe beyond just needing or wanting power, but the idea of women being able to have some sort of power. Anyway,
where are these witches at?
Where are these witches at? Well, currently with Sony, they were interested in the script, but I kept seeing quotes from various people involved in this movie that it was a strange time for young adult movies. And they kept saying things like no one was doing young adult. Young adult wasn't really a thing. And I'm struggling to understand that. I feel like teen movies were always a thing, but I know they've looked different at different times, because we talked about that with Clueless. You had the 80s like raunchy teen movies, and that was a struggle with getting Clueless made, was that it wasn't that kind of fit. Although that being said, Clueless hadn't yet come out when they were trying to get The Craft made, so maybe that kind of 90s teen, especially like girl focused teen movie hadn't really started. Yeah, because it's funny to me because, like I've said on this podcast, as a teenage girl, we'd go to movies all the time and just see whatever new teen movie was out, teen rom com, whatever. And I could rattle off so many different movies that were like this same kind of formula, but like in this one, the girl is a dancer, in this one, the girl is an artist. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
so I guess maybe we just weren't there yet. I also, I guess I was confused about their phrasing of young adult because to me, I always think of that as books, like young adult as a book genre. But, and I feel like with movies, you call them teen movies. But
I think maybe it's all about verbiage. Young adult sounds a little bit more mature than teen movies, and maybe you're
yeah.
thinking slightly older. But to your
Mm-hmm.
point, I think you have a hard time with this quote because you kept going to the movies and seeing these. But I do think it was like the mid 90s was the shift, because that when we'd
Mm-hmm.
be old enough to go to the movies anyways with our friends, whether we got dropped off or rode our bikes. But
Mm-hmm.
95, we would have been, 95, 96 would be 10 and 11. From that point
Yeah,
on, there's a lot of these teen movies, even just in the horror genre, which we mentioned last season.
that's true. Yeah. And as we get into more of the background, I think we do see that this was at the start of all of that. They also mentioned that it was really hard to get a movie about teenage girls made, which we have
We've
heard
heard this
before.
before. Uh-huh.
Yes, we've heard this before. Much like Clueless, it was a group of four teenage girls. I remember our discussion of Amy Heckerling trying to get Clueless made. No one wanted a group of three girls. There were no boys, not enough boys. And the producer did say it would have been a lot easier to get the green light for a movie about teenage boys. But the script was eventually passed to Andrew Fleming for a rewrite. He became the director. He had done only two movies previously, a horror movie about a cult survivor called Bad Dreams, and a college comedy called Threesome with Lara Flynn Boyle and Stephen Baldwin. And Lara Flynn Boyle from Wayne's World.
I don't think I've seen or heard of either of those.
I haven't either, but these were enough that Peter, our screenwriter, Doug, our producer, were very excited about him coming aboard. So I think they both had seen his previous films. Peter, the screenwriter, is quoted as saying, I told Andy, that's Andrew Fleming, that for me, this was not a hocus pocus film. It was about the power of adolescent pain. Andy agreed, and off he went. Andrew, the director, said, my experience from high school was not pretty in pink. It was a very serious, gothic, heavy duty experience. Everybody was under a lot of pressure, so I liked that part of it a lot. In his rewrite, he ended up adding the suicide storyline for Sarah, Bonnie having scars, and Rochelle being black and dealing with racist bullying. I read in the research that before the changes he made, Rochelle was a white girl with bulimia.
Hmm.
Yeah, and part of that change was they liked the actress so much that came in to read for Rochelle, the one who Rachel True, who ended up getting the part, that they changed some of the character to fit her. I just wanted to mention a couple of things that Andrew Fleming used for his research when he was rewriting the screenplay. He did not use a witch consultant. They end up using one once they're filming, which we'll get into a little bit. He read into earth magic and things we experience when we are truly open to the forces of nature around us. A book called Earth Power by Scott Cunningham. Goddesses in Every Woman by Jean Bolin. The Power of Myth by Joseph Campbell. And he also listened to a lot of Hole, which I just found personally interesting because I loved their album Live Through This when I was younger. And that is specifically the album he listened to all the time while working on the craft. I saw a quote from him that said every time he hears doll parts specifically, he thinks of the craft.
That's pretty cool.
And I could see that.
It's like all these books on, you know, basically pagan god earth powers, and then
Mm-hmm.
whole, listen to them whole.
Yep.
Maybe
Mm-hmm.
maybe that extra angst really push the screenplay to the R rating that we got.
He said it is raw power of adolescent pain.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Which, if nothing else, I think could properly describe what I thought I was dealing with while listening to Hole as a young person.
Yeah.
So they did have a consultant on set that helped write the chants and incantations. Her name's Pat Devon. She's credited as a technical consultant. The director said, I wanted Wiccans to see it and say, yeah, that's not offensive to me. That's what it's like. Which, like, I could understand maybe some of that, especially when the girls are first learning about things. But you really think, like, Wiccans watched this whole movie and they were like, yeah, it's totally what it's like.
This is totally real.
Totally legit. They made up the god Mano for the movie because they felt it would be offensive to attribute these things to any religion's real god, which is also kind of a choice, I feel. We'll get into.
Yeah, I mean, seems like they were playing it as safe as possible, which is,
Mm-hmm.
in 96 kind of refreshing because like I feel like that's kind of more, I hate saying it, but like in our PC cancel culture era, like you that I feel like that back then you would just say whatever you want and no, who cares? We'll deal with the
Right.
problems that we cause later on. But it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of cool. He wanted to be. It says like he didn't want to be offensive to Wiccans, but I just like the fact that he was trying to be as close to what is real
Mm-hmm.
in this made up high school drama. And
Mm-hmm.
then I like the idea of making up a god because you can do whatever you want. You made it up,
Mm-hmm.
but then yeah, you don't want to offend people if at a certain point in this movie you're like, oh, what's going on here? That, so it's a good safety net to have, but also when you're creating it, you could do whatever you want.
True. He also had a slightly personal reason that I read in an interview. It was not related to the craft, but some meeting he had before this about getting a movie made, whatever. He didn't go into details. He accidentally pissed off some woman who worked at some studio. I don't know who or what, again, no details. But it turned out she was pagan practicing, and she said that she was going to put a spell on him and it would really fuck him up,
Oh
was the
wow.
quote. And so he was very concerned moving forward about offending anyone who who consider themselves part of this belief system because of that incident, which I feel like maybe that woman was not the best representative of her faith, but that's okay.
It messed him up enough to tread lightly here.
I know he said it really freaked him out, and like obviously he did. If he was like years later, like, oh, I better make sure this movie doesn't piss off the Wiccans.
Yeah, they'd come back after me.
Yep. Okay, so getting into our actors, I read an interview with the casting director who said that it was difficult to cast for this because this was before you had like low budget horror movies that would really blow up, like Blair Witch or Paranormal Activity, where it's not really about selling it on the name of the actors. You can argue we kind of went into like a post movie star like indie thing, especially with horror. This was not that time yet. But our producer here, Doug, said it fit in no category. It was before young adult. There were very few female heroines like that, and there was no star who was exactly right. Again, this young adult thing. Anyway, it was before young adult. There were no young adults. They actually had a hold on Angelina Jolie to play one of the parts in this movie. No one ever specified what. She got a part in the movie Foxfire. They couldn't keep her from taking that because although they had a hold on her to be in their movie, there was no specific start date. There was no for sure, yes, the craft was moving forward in production. So they had a hold on her, but they couldn't really keep her from taking other work. So she left. Alicia Silverstone auditioned. She had already filmed Clueless, but Clueless had not come out yet. So she was not exactly known. Scarlett Johansson also auditioned, but she was 12 at the time.
Yeah, that would cause some problems.
Yeah. Robert Tunney, who ended up playing Sarah, she was brought in to read for screen tests with the other three girls. The other three girls were already cast. She was originally just going to do it as like a stand-in to read against these three that they knew were solidly part of the cast. She knew the casting director, so the casting director like called her in and was like, "Can you be a stand-in for me?" Everyone ended up loving her. However, she had recently finished Empire Records, where she has her head shaved in that movie, and the director thought she was weird, so he was not sold on her right away.
Well, I
um,
mean, I feel like you kind of want weird for this kind of movie, right?
yeah, I think so. Especially when you hear his quotes about casting Firuza Balk as Nancy, it's like she's so expressive. She already has kind of like that outsider energy. Like, who else could you cast for this? And maybe for Sarah, you wanted someone a little more down to earth or straight laced,
Yeah, I guess
given that
so.
she's like sort of the good one of the group,
Yeah,
arguably. Yeah.
yeah.
But the screen tests with the four main actresses are what finally convinced the studio to say, go ahead, you can start production, as long as Robin Tunney wore a wig. She was actually originally cast as Bonnie. I'm not really sure how that came about, but the director was quoted multiple times that she had to be convinced to take the lead role. She actually really wanted to do the part of Bonnie.
Huh.
And I think part of it too was that everyone involved said that at the time Nev Campbell was the biggest star out of the four, and because she was on Party of Five, the TV show. For those of you who aren't aware, my mom watched Party of Five.
I don't think I've ever watched that show. I know it came on, and I know, like, I knew the actresses and actors on it for the most part. Again, this is when TV was bigger and just you couldn't get away from commercials promoting other
Of
TV
course, yeah.
shows during the X Files. Everything on Fox.
During the X Files.
But yeah, and then Screen hasn't come out yet. But it's about to, right? So
Yes,
that
yes.
she'll blow up here in like 6 months.
Yeah. Okay. So we have our four witches. We're ready to go. I hadn't seen this in a few years. Okay, I specifically remember watching it during not the last election, but the presidential election before that. So 2020, we had rented it for Halloween and never got around to watching it. And literally remember election night, I was like, this is stressful. Let's just watch The Craft and not watch the news. And
Wow.
I know. And that was like one of the first times I had seen it since I was probably like in high school. So I'd seen it a few years ago, but yeah, still a lot that hit different in this rewatch. Starting with the opening credit sequence, that title card is so cheesy and so
Yeah.
90s. That
Mm-hmm.
font,
Yes.
yeah.
I think we'll talk about it in like 45 seconds from now, but it does give me Charmed vibes. I never really watched a lot of Charmed, but again, comes on TV a lot. Like even now in
Yeah.
syndication, I can't go to the gym without watching an episode of Charmed.
Really?
It's always on. Well, they
Wow.
have like a bunch of different TVs with different channels on, and
Well, right, I
TBS
understand
is
that.
always rolling. So
Okay. I just didn't know that was something that was on reruns that much. Okay.
daytime TV.
Charmed isn't daytime TV.
It is now.
Well, it is now because of these reruns.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I haven't watched cable in a really long time, so I wouldn't even know
hmm
like what's in syndication, like what's in heavy syndication. I have no idea. Every time I go to the gym, the news is on. So, but yeah, we will discuss Charmed in a little bit here. So we see Sarah and her family are moving, I guess, to LA. I don't think we know that at first, but it's pouring rain. And I remember this now when they're driving to the house and there's like a giant snake in the tree. And I was just like, where is she moving to?
Right.
Does LA have a lot of snakes? Is that a thing?
I wouldn't assume so. No, it doesn't make sense to me. I
Right.
was just kind of flabbergasted when they get into the house and it's like leaking everywhere. Like, oh, our roof's leaking. And they were so calm and casual about it, but also, did you not do like an inspection before you bought the house?
I guess my assumption was they moved from far away and like couldn't do an inspection or something. But then she said they moved from San Francisco, which really isn't that far.
But
So,
still, like,
but no,
uh,
still, you would inspect the house, you would think. But yeah, an appropriately old crumbling house, kind of Spanish style, but still giving us some goth vibes,
of course.
of course, like you do. And like you said, pretty angsty all around already.
Oh yeah, the house has a mood. The snakes have a mood.
Yeah.
We're all very moody.
Yes. And I think this is when the seemingly homeless man like pops in with a snake like in their front door and he's like, "Oh, you need this snake." And obviously Sarah is frightened because it seems pretty random.
Yeah,
Yep.
you just burst in like, "Hey, I got this for you."
Yep.
Oh, all right, I'm gonna leave now. Bye.
Yep.
He's also angsty. A bunch of young adults running around here.
Yep. It's funny, we this morning at the bus stop we were all talking about how our kids are already so angsty and they're like 9, like 8 and 9. And we
Mm,
were like, so it starts now, not like later? Like how bad is it going to be when they're actually angsty teenagers? Cuz that doesn't sound great.
it's
So,
not. Good luck.
yep. Yep. But anyway, watching it this time, I was surprised that they let Sarah start she's going to a Catholic school. I'm surprised they let her start without a uniform. Maybe they give the new kids some slack. I don't know. I hadn't realized this before that I mean, obviously you can tell she's the only one not in uniform, but in one of the articles I read, there was an interview with the costume director who said, she didn't have the Catholic uniform yet. She was sort of in this, how did she put it? A sloppy sweatshirt. And she's in, I think, like a casual dress, like it's a little baggy. And when the studio heads saw the dailies or whatever, because they ended up filming this mostly in order, which isn't usually the case. But when they saw the dailies from this, that these were the outfits that their lead actress was in, they all came down to meet with the costume director. And they're basically like, what the hell is wrong with you? You're insane. Because while young adult apparently was not a thing yet, they probably still felt they had to have like attractive young actresses in nice outfits.
Hmm. I feel like maybe that's one of the appeals I had with this film because it felt like costuming felt real.
Yeah.
Like that's what we wore in the fucking 90s. Baggy
Yes, exactly.
clothes.
Yeah. And we'll get into the costumes end up being a big part of the story too. But the costume director was like, luckily they trusted me. They understood I had this whole vision for it. But she said it was pretty funny that like a pack of male studio execs came in and like, why is she in baggy clothes? And like, of
Because
course
it
they
makes
did.
sense.
Yep. I noticed this time too that as soon as Sarah walks in the school, they make sure to show you this bloody crucifix as she's like going through a doorway. And I don't want to cause offense by saying this, but it's startling to realize sometimes how like jarring and violent, like very mainstream religious symbolism can be. And I think it's just like something I don't notice because I grew up around that kind of stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's around everywhere. I don't know. It was an interesting juxtaposition to be like, they are supposedly about to be going down the wrong path of like this darkness and violence, but like, oh, there's still like a lot of violence and even like some gore involved in like mainstream belief systems too.
Yeah, it's a good way to both compare and contrast in
Mm-hmm.
one single shot with this bloodied, crucified Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first thing she sees going into this new Catholic school.
So in this opening too, we're introduced to like a lot of our main actors. Nev Campbell obviously became a big 90s teen movie star, but also Skeet Ulrich, who plays Chris in this. I guess he seems like the most popular guy in school, football player, that kind of thing. But he, like you mentioned just a bit ago, is going to go on to be in Scream with Nev Campbell, released the same year. Breckin Meyer, who is part of Chris's friend group was also in Clueless as
More or
our
less the same
pothead.
character. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. When we meet Nancy, Rochelle, and Bonnie, our three other witches, they're talking by Nancy's locker, and as they're talking, Nancy pulls a noose out of her locker.
Yeah.
I forgot about that
Same.
completely. I understand that, they hanged witches or suspected witches, but I don't know. I feel like when I see a noose, I think of like lynching.
Yeah.
I don't know if I also just watched Sinners, so maybe that's just where
Mm.
my head is. But like I understand the noose can have symbolism to like people who are interested in witchcraft, but there's just like some really heavy racial connotation there too that was like to me it was a little jarring.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that wasn't my first thought because the witches had it in their locker. I mean, I thought about Salem, but I also kind of thought of just the gothic, angsty group of kids that like they would just something that they would have. It just made sense. Like to kind of like really push the fact that you're edgy, you would own and do weird things like that almost on purpose to
Mm.
further cement yourself as the weird kid, so to speak.
Nev Campbell, her character Bonnie, automatically, like right off the bat, we can see she's very introverted. She's very unsure of herself. Her hair is so greasy when we first meet her.
Mm-hmm. Where's
Does
her
she have?
roommate to tell her she looks like ass?
That's all I could think of was does she have guilt hair?
Guilt hair. Oh yeah.
Yep.
I mean, realistically, this is also depression hair, but for a different reason.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking like, because her hair looks different later, and I was wondering if maybe besides being introverted and kind of, probably depressed, I wonder if she like physically showered less because of all the burns on her back. Like, did it hurt? Cold or hot water? Like, they're pretty
Oh.
intense burns.
Yeah, that has always bothered me actually that like obviously something happened to her because her her back in particular is really scarred. I think it's her back and her arms, but
Yeah.
you never know why.
No.
And you would just think that whatever happened to cause those scars would also be pretty traumatic.
Yeah.
And it just like never gets brought up.
That's okay. Sarah kind of meets the girls by proxy because Chris, being the popular kid, wants to talk to the new girl
Hmm.
and mentions that those girls over there are witches. Well, they're having lunch, but they're having lunch outside. They must be in California. It must be a summer movie.
I didn't clock this at all, so thank you for bringing it up.
Oh my god, I gotta do all the heavy lifting around here. As you do all the research.
It's funny because in this scene in particular, I noticed there were so many cops at the school
Yeah.
because there were cops walking in the background of this lunch scene. That's what I noticed. And then when we first meet the other three girls at Nancy's locker, a cop walks by and they make a comment to her. It's a different cop. I was wondering, like, why are there so many cops at this school? Because I don't think we had any at my school.
I was wondering, date wise, this isn't like extremely right after Columbine, is it?
I
Or
didn't
that
think
is that
Columbine
later?
was till like 99.
Okay. Then never mind.
Yeah, that's I couldn't help thinking that too. It's so funny, like the things that we grew like events that we grew up with affect how we watch these movies now. Just like when we were
Yeah.
talking about the asteroid movies, like seeing the Twin Towers in it.
Yeah.
We eventually get to Sarah meeting the girls herself instead of Chris just telling her about them. But I could not get over this when Nancy is explaining to Sarah why she should avoid Chris, that he's a jerk, that he sleeps around, and it seems like he just kind of discards all the women he's been with. One of them makes a comment like he'll hit on anything, and Bonnie says, except me. And I just felt like I don't know. It felt so cringy to me. Like I know we're trying to drive it home that Bonnie, no one has like romantic interest in her because of her appearance and whatnot, and she's obviously very insecure. It just, I don't know. I cringed.
I mean, eh, was it necessary? Probably not. This is the first time Sarah's seeing the girls, and they like
Hmm.
sneak up on her while she's like sneaking a peek at Chris playing football. So it's like a lot of
Yeah.
spying on spies.
Hmm.
I guess it just kind of just solidifies what we already kind of assumed about Bonnie. I could
I
live
guess.
without it, but it didn't bother me so much at the same time.
Hmm. The girls take her to this occult shop, and this bothered me too. Could be thinking too much about it. But I remember when they tell Sarah they're going to go shopping, Sarah's like, I don't have any money. And they said 5 finger discount, meaning they're going to just take what they want. But then later, Sarah does buy stuff and pays for it. So with cash. So maybe she just said that because she didn't really want to go places with these weird girls. The shop owner is an actress named Assumpta Serna. She is actually a big movie star in Spain, where she's from, and she was in one of Pedro Almodovar's first movies, Matador. That is apparently how the filmmakers found her for this movie. That was made in like I think she said 86.
Hmm.
It was 80 something. But yeah, they wanted her to be their occult expert in this. Just thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, she went on to have like a really big career back in Spain. We just knew her as like the little brief like shop owner part in the craft.
Yeah. Interesting.
I always think of the line when Sarah grabs the candles and the shop owner asks her if she knows how to use them, and Sarah's like, "Yeah, you light the wick." Like,
I thought it was a good line.
yeah. Um,
Well, like that line and the 5 finger discount line, it's
mhm.
these little things that really click for me that these are teens.
Yeah.
The smart ass mouth and possibly
Hmm.
theft and stuff like that. Like obviously these are the bad kids, so of course they're gonna steal or say they're gonna steal.
Right. I was interested in how the shop owner like continuously lets them back into her shop when she seems to know that they steal from her.
Yeah, it seems like she's supporting a habit here, not theft either.
Yeah, that's true. You saying that it really brings out that they're teenagers. That's something I picked up on too this rewatch, particularly in Sarah's character. When she eventually does go on a date with Chris and doesn't want to go home with him, and you could tell she's hesitant to even say that she doesn't want to go back home with him. And then she's like, "Are you okay? Are you mad at me?" And it just, I don't know. I feel like when you watch especially big studio movies about teenagers, they're always acting so much older than teenagers that I knew growing up. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But she really felt like a teenager to me. And, on this cusp of like, she has independence, right? She's old enough that she could like go out with her friends on her own or whatever. But even the opening scene when she's in her new house, she kind of jumps down the stairs and then like she needs her dad when she gets scared of that guy. Like I really
Hmm.
felt like Sarah, you could tell that she was a little more sheltered than the other girls in her reactions to some things, and I think that's on purpose.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I didn't even think Shelters it felt like she was a teenager to me.
Or just younger, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Was it because she was more earnest?
Shut up. For what it's worth, no one said that that's why any of them got the part, was their earnestness. Okay, so we eventually, well, the man with the snake shows up again, which I want to bring up only because I don't understand the point of him. He keeps offering Sarah a snake, and snakes are
Yeah.
important later.
Well, yeah, there's like certain things, I guess, iconography with witches or
Mm-hmm.
magic, snakes being one of them, occasionally, depending on which route we go here, but usually of like a deeper, darker kind
Mm-hmm.
of magic, evil. And then,
Mm-hmm.
paralleling with the Catholic school, the serpent is also, some,
Mm-hmm.
bringing that back. The reason that he's on the street though is kind of weird. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and then he like recognizes her and runs to her with the snake. He still has the
Yeah.
snake. Why does he still have the snake?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I remember later Nancy says something about like snakes are seen as really powerful.
Hmm.
But then also we find out that Sarah, when she was very depressed and attempting suicide, she saw like snakes and bugs a lot or like hallucinated them. So for her, that's like a scary thing.
Right.
But for Nancy, it's like power
Hmm. Yeah. And I just think why he was on the city street.
because he's homeless.
Yeah, but they like went to town to go shopping. I guess like, he has no place to like stay, but that he randomly I get again
He
where he
keeps
randomly finds
finding
them.
her.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know.
I guess I thought it was gonna like he was gonna sense that she was a witch or something, but nothing really comes of it except for the fact that he gets hit by a car in this scene and all the girls realize they thought of him getting hit by a car at the same times, which is what brings them to realize that Sarah's like their missing fourth person. They could do magic together.
Could it be something as simple as, geez, that they had to write off some character that maybe the audience would not feel so bad getting hit by a car? This because he was kind of creepy homeless guy, and like
Yeah.
kind of broke into their house and is kind of following her around.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems a little better that he get hit by a car versus I don't know a random person or
Maybe.
like one of the kids that are mean to him. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. He was expendable.
Yeah,
As we get into, like I said, the girls realizing they can do magic together, Sarah's confused about all of this. The other three explain how, they've been trying to do magic. They need four corners: earth, air, fire, water. And they have this, I don't know, they don't call Menno a god exactly, but it's sort of like this leader, and he's the earth, he's the ground, he's everything, whatever. But they always refer to him as he. And I'm not super familiar with Wiccan or paganism, but I feel like what I do know of it, it's always felt very like female focused. And this personally bothered me a little bit that like the head guy was a guy.
well, as you do. I again, I don't know much about this stuff either. I feel at least with paganism over Wiccan. I think there's just a lot of different gods or deities, or whatever you want to call them. Kind of think of like ancient Egypt or Native
Hmm.
American, something to represent everything: wind, earth,
Hmm.
fire. And maybe he's just their boss. There could be some female ones too.
He's their
Again,
boss.
I don't. Well, there's always like the one that's the like okay with Greek. There's Zeus, but there's also like a god for or goddess for everything else. But then like
Hmm.
Zeus is like the end boss, so to speak.
Hmm.
Maybe in this world that is what Mano is, or I don't know.
Sure. It was just interesting to me that even the people who made this movie talk so much about female empowerment, but then it's like, oh, the big one is still male. That's all.
Yeah, well, that's the part where yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Yep.
When we know
Um,
too much behind the scenes, they're like, wait, couldn't you have just made this a female?
yeah.
We get introduced a little bit to each of the girls' kind of problems at home, so to speak,
Hmm.
or just in school. And Rochelle is bullied
Hmm.
by what's her name, Laura, and they see her like briefly in the locker room. There, she's on the swim team, and I was like, wait, is that what's her face, that Ben Stiller's wife, Christine Taylor? And then they actually have like dialogue together. I'm like, oh shit, that is her, and she's pretty freaking racist in this movie. What a jerk.
Yeah. First of all, I think her name's Laura Lizzie, which is like a dumb name. So Rochelle is on the diving team, I think it is. And we
Yeah,
do see Laura making fun of her a lot and, like yelling to mess up her dives and stuff. And she is very clear, like, because Rochelle is like, why are you so hard on me? And she's like, literally because you're black. So there's
yeah,
no ifs, ands,
yep,
or buts about it.
yeah. We see Bonnie getting what I'm assuming is some sort of skin grafting for her
Yeah, they mentioned
burns.
some sort of gene therapy. They're obviously trying to
Help
uh
her out.
help, yeah, to lessen the scarring.
And then Nancy has a rough home life, lives in a trailer with her mom seems a little crazy, and then her stepdad's definitely abusive and drunk, it seems like, all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I really liked how they set up Nancy in particular. Before you even see that she lives in a trailer, she's like walking up a hill to her home, and it's like you can see the city behind her, but where she's walking, it's all dark and it's raining, and she like doesn't even have an umbrella. And then even when she does get back home in this trailer, it's leaking like water onto her while she lays on the bed. And I think, like you said, her mom and her stepdad are fighting about who paid the electric bill or something. And it sounds like a really horrible home life that she really has no escape from because they also live in this little trailer. So like I just appreciate that they've set up how desperate she is for something to be different, for to have some power over her situation.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
She definitely seems to have the most motivation to become the most power hungry.
Yeah. And I just like that she's not just like a villain for villain's sake. I like that there's
Yeah.
some driving force. Yeah, so this sets up, I think, pretty much what all the girls want out of this situation. Oh, I did want to point out that Nancy's mom, I think her name's Grace in the movie, she was in the original Amityville Horror. She said she played the psychic that, like, she said something about bringing a wall down.
Hmm.
I've never seen any version of the Amityville Horror, so
Oh. Yeah, I'm big fan of the original one. In this movie, she's got like this like short white wig on or something, and
mm-hmm,
like
mm-hmm.
it like kind of comes over her face a lot. Like I can't really see the actress. And I read your note, and I'm like trying to picture her from Amityville Horror. Of course, that's like 20 years older. Not picturing it, but I believe you. But it's hard to imagine, and I don't. And I can definitely can't picture. So I was like, she wasn't the mom, was she? I definitely can't picture the psychic though.
Yeah, she said, I read an interview with her where basically everyone was talking about the prep they did, like learning about witchcraft or the occult or whatever. And like the woman who plays the shop owner was talking about how much research she did and visited all these stores in LA. And then when you get to the actress that played the mom, she's like, "Oh, I played the psychic in Amityville Horror. Like, this isn't my first rodeo. I didn't look up in anything."
Well, she doesn't really have to. She's barely in the movie, and nothing that
Yeah.
she's doing is tying to that. So
Yeah, it's okay. I feel like the scene where the girls are riding the bus together and you have the little girls looking at them and maybe, some of the adults kind of glancing over. To me, that's what I think of when I think of the craft. The bus scene, and then when they get off and the bus driver says, "Look out for the weirdos," and they say, "We are the weirdos, mister."
yeah, I remember that from the trailer for
Yeah,
sure. Pretty sure that was like
absolutely.
the end of the trailer or something like that, and like the bus door
Mm,
closes on them and it cuts to black. And I remember, I wasn't a teenage girl, but I remember thinking like these girls are so cool.
yeah, yeah. That is
Yeah,
exactly what I thought too.
yeah. She had like the red glasses and like, oh, that's so cool. Like everything she's looking
Hmm.
at looks like blood or whatever, and it's just like something different. But and I think they were again going to the costuming. It was more believable to me.
Hmm.
Like I know Clueless is a whole nother world,
Yeah,
but it's set in the same town, same time period, and you can
that's
just
true. Yeah.
see how different even like the secondary characters are dressed versus the entire cast of this movie.
Hmm. Yeah, and I literally had a note that their outfits on the bus are so 90s, but I mean that in a very like good way.
Oh yeah,
And yeah, and I do like that they're sort of dressed softer in this scene, if that makes sense compared to some of the outfits later. It's a little less, it's more flowy dresses, it's less black, but it
yeah,
also works with this scene where they're just going out in nature and they're gonna kind of like commit to being a coven. And as a result of that, I think what butterflies kind of, I don't want to say swarm because it's not scary, but you have butterflies come in and like land on them. The outfits work with this scene so well, but also it's something I could totally believe them wearing.
yeah. The costuming wasn't just dedicated to them wearing like witch hats and black clothes all the time.
Right, exactly.
They go on a little like witch picnic, a witch nick.
Before we get into that, I just wanted to point out that Doug Wick, the producer, the little girls on the bus that are looking at the four older girls are his daughters.
I mean, why not, right?
Yep.
It's
The
kind of
Doug
cool.
Wick who wanted to make like female empowerment movies. But yes, that being said, they go on their witch picnic, and this is when they like prick their fingers and put the blood in
Ugh.
the chalice. And oh yeah, I know. At this point for me, I was like, wow, this is too many needles, because I I don't like needles, but also we had the scene where Bonnie was getting, some stuff injected into her back, and like looked like it was excruciatingly painful for her.
The part where I'm like shivering about is not the needles. The needles don't bother me. It's the 4 drops of everyone's blood into a chalice of cheap wine that they drink. I'm like, oh god, gross.
I mean, yes, I did not love that either. But
That's
witchy stuff.
yeah, witchy stuff. We kind of talk about like with the asteroid movies, how the Twin Towers are like, oh, that's a thing, or like the school cops pre Columbine. There's certain things like post COVID you think of too, like oh. Not that I would ever want to drink blood pre COVID either. That's weird to me. But hey, now they're all whatever they got. They all got together. They're all sisters now.
It's funny to me too, because when Nancy is first trying to warn Sarah about Chris, she says something like, he spreads disease. I speak from experience. And it's like, I don't know, sharing blood and needles could also do that too. Guys.
Right. Yeah. Well, she was definitely speaking more of like a metaphor, but
Sure.
I hope she was at this point. At this point, I hope she was speaking with liberties and not like literal, because now they all got it. If that's
Yeah.
what the case, I don't know.
Yeah. So oh, we should probably mention, isn't this when each of the girls goes through their specific spell, like what they want most?
It was here, right?
I think it's here because Sarah
Okay.
wants Chris to fall in love with her, which she says is pretty lame. And like, admittedly, yeah, it's kind of lame, especially compared to kind of like what the other girls want. Like Rochelle wants the racist blonde girl to stop bullying her. Bonnie, she says she wants to be beautiful, but like what she wants is for her scars to go away. And Nancy says she wants like all the power of Manon, which we've already established, like Nancy's the power hungry one or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, I understand why. Her life sucks.
Couple questions.
Yes.
We know what 3 of the girls want or why they want it. Like, what's their motivation? What's Sarah's motivation to complete this coven? And like, she doesn't seem to have a bad home life.
Mm-hmm.
She's not physically or mentally scarred or abused.
Sarah mentions that she has sort of a natural ability to do magic, and we see that a little bit, like she's making her pencil stand up straight, and Bonnie gets a glimpse of it, and that's how they know that she could be their fourth in the first place. But she talks about how she'll wish for things, but they get messed up. Like she'll wish for rain and a pipe will burst. So maybe for her, it's just like, okay, well, maybe if I learn more about this, I could actually make something happen that I want to happen.
Okay. Okay.
And I think for her too, it's not as out there or scary of a concept because she's been like living with some sort of ability. She just doesn't know how to use it.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then follow up.
Mm-hmm.
Why Chris? Like, it feels like she doesn't really like him because he was kind of a jerk, right? And spreading rumors
Yeah.
about her. And then the other girls kind of like confirm, yeah, he is a jerk. And Nancy specifically is like, yeah, basically the same thing happened to me. Like, we went on a date and you started talking some stuff about me behind my back.
Mm-hmm.
So not only is this guy not all that great, and no one seems to think so, but sure, teenage love.
Yeah.
But now one of your coven sisters, like, I feel like she's not going to get jealous or anything. Like, you don't think that's a good idea. Like, yeah, that guy you really were into that is a real big dick to you and everyone else, and you clearly aren't fully over that. I want him to love me.
Yeah.
That just seemed like,
That's a good point. I wasn't thinking about the connection there with Nancy. I do think for Sarah, I mean, she was new and he was the first person to be nice to her. And so he was nice to her the first day of school. And then they had what she thought was a nice date. I think it's hard for her to let go of who she thought he was
Mm.
when she had no friends. I mean, she thought he was just a nice guy, and then also probably as a comeuppance too.
She says something in a way that makes it sound it's a little vindictive. Like, I guess she wants him to love her, like how she was infatuated with him and realized
Hmm.
what a joke he was, because the rest
Yeah.
of the movie she just kind of like shoos him off and uses it like, carry my books and carry this, and like kind of
Yeah, yeah.
abuse that romance because it's one-sided. So I guess that makes sense. She's like torturing him in a way.
And yeah, and it ends up affecting like, how people view him too, because like he's like the most popular guy in school or whatever, and everyone's like, why are you whipped? Like,
Yeah,
what's going on?
right. Yeah.
So this leads us into that montage where like everything's going really well for them.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the peak of female friendship and bonding. You pointed out that they watch Bewitched. I did also think that was cute.
Yeah, it was so on the nose that it was great.
Hmm.
Like, and I think what makes it work too is it's part of the montage, and they're doing a sleepover, and they're all like kind of like piled on top of each other, watching it,
Hmm.
eating popcorn, but like
Hmm.
laughing, like, haha, we're witches watching the show. Like, if it was just them
Hmm.
watching it seriously, it would not work for me. But they
Right.
were watching it to be funny, and it worked for me. Peak of montage moment. They all the good stuff is happening. They have confidence, and then they have this like really cool girl hero shot through the courtyard of their outdoor lunch school. But yeah, they look like, yeah, they are not to be messed with.
Yeah, definitely. And this is also too where we start to see their outfits change a little bit. Like they're obviously all a lot more confident, wearing maybe shorter skirts, some tighter blouses.
Yeah.
Bonnie in particular, this is when her scars do come off, and I always think about this scene like when I get a sunburn and like it would peel,
Ugh.
like because it's always like when they show that close up, it just comes off like you're
Yeah.
peeling a sunburn.
Yeah.
And I do really like the bit afterward though, where she comes into class and she's like wearing short sleeves and like no huge coat covering her up for the first time. At the flip side, we have Laura Lizzie's hair falling out because I think they did a spell where they take some of her hair, they braid it into Bonnie's, and basically, if Laura keeps being mean to her, her hair will fall out. And of course, she's still mean to her, but Bonnie ends up being so startled that Laura's hair keeps coming out, and I don't really know what they thought was going to happen.
Yeah. I'm not sure here because it basically isn't that kind of the spell they enchanted? Or, I mean,
Yeah,
she's kind of vague. Like, she just wants Laura to suffer for being a racist.
right,
And she
right.
mentions about her like bleach blonde hair or whatever. So I guess that is the focal point here of the revenge. But yeah, it comes out in like these gross chunks, and like
And like her scalp's
it's,
bloody, and it's gross.
yeah, it's not just like, oh, she's bald now. It's like, oh, she's like not, she's got like a skullet going on, and she's like bleeding, and
Yeah.
it, I don't, maybe it's painful. I have no idea.
I do like the little bit though where Nancy's upset that her spell isn't working, and I think it's Sarah asks like what her spell was, and Rochelle says she doesn't want to be white trash anymore or something. And then she's like, "But I told her, honey, you're white. Just deal with it."
Right.
But also, I don't think they kind of make it sound like this confusing thing, and it's she doesn't want to be poor anymore. Like that's a pretty reasonable, I think,
Yeah.
wish.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. So what ends up happening is her stepdad ends up having a heart attack and dies. Turns out he's left them with $175,000, Nancy and her mom. And like I feel like a jerk, especially after seeing your note on this, but I felt like they live in LA. I don't know if that's that much money for LA, especially when you see this really fancy apartment that they get and how much money they've spent.
It's definitely going to get them out of the trailer.
Right.
at least bare minimum into like a nicer one that doesn't leak. Like, I mean, hell, Sarah's house leaks too.
I mean, that's true.
Christ,
Yeah.
Jesus, like all these leaky houses. And,
Hmm.
clearly, if you live in LA '96, you should be a roofer. You'd make bank.
Yeah.
I feel like it's life changing. Where I mean, debts are probably paid off. You're getting
Hmm.
in this situation a nicer apartment.
Hmm.
Now, I don't know how long that money's going to last in LA if that's the point you're making. Like, I don't think you just retire at 17 years old and live the rest of your life in LA at
Well, right, of course.
$175,000.
Hmm.
But maybe they bought the apartment and like, I mean, they'll still have to work for like the monthlies and the
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
that. But when, I mean, I think I think it was a big life change for someone like Nancy for sure.
Hmm. I guess my immediate thought was, you can't even buy a house for that. You live in LA. But then I was like, oh, never mind. They got this apartment. But then her mom got that like custom jukebox that only plays what Connie Francis. And so it's like, well, that probably wasn't cheap. And I'm just thinking like the
Right.
money's probably gone by now.
Yeah.
But also I did look up on an inflation calculator and it would be about 360,000 today. So
I'd rock that.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it's not like I would say no to it. I just don't know if that's enough for, like you said, is it going to change your life in an ongoing way? You know what I mean? Like, are they going to
Yeah.
be able to keep up with this, like, really nice apartment and all this stuff they bought? That's all.
Yeah, the jukebox is a little much. Get a nicer place to live, something that doesn't leak on your bed, sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's you got to go to work still, which is fine though. It's you're allowed to do that, but
Yeah.
at least
Well,
you're set up for at least a little bit of some comfort.
yes, yes. And I think just the way her mom says, like, ever since I was a little girl, this is like what I always wanted. I know it's silly. And like, we all had that stuff, right? Like, if we had like millions and millions of dollars, like something that we would just love to buy that is totally unnecessary. And like, to me, $175,000 when you already have to like get a new place to live and whatnot, like, it's not like dream spending amount of money. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, I 100.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like, yeah, you
Okay.
get yourself out of the hole, and then
Yeah.
don't buy dumb things.
Right. It would be
'Cause-
like if someone was like, ever since I was a little girl, I wanted a pony. Like, that's
yeah,
how I
right.
feel like her mom is.
There's a pony in the apartment in LA
Right.
playing the jukebox.
Ever
Love this
since I was a
song.
little girl, I wanted a pony. I would call it Connie Francis.
uh,
This is when we learn, I guess the girls call it a glamour. They can do a spell called a glamour where it changes your appearance. Sarah manages to make her hair turn blonde, and I cannot get over how awful this effect looks.
yeah, it's pretty bad.
It's very bad. Funny too when you think about how she was wearing a wig through this whole movie, because actually I kept thinking like Sarah has really great hair. It's a wig. But it's even more noticeable like once she changes it to blonde, she kind of like runs her hands over her hair and it comes out blonde and it just looks like, I don't know, very primitive, like cut and paste like Photoshop onto her head. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't know that she was wearing a wig because why would I know that? But it's kind of funny
Right.
that it did look good until the blonde part, and it's weird too because like she runs her hands through it, like you said, and I guess maybe because it is a wig, but like I feel like it added like 2 feet to her hair, Peggy Bundy hairdo, and then like yeah, it was
Yeah.
really badly blonded.
Yeah, it's because it's like a slightly different styling too, which makes it look odd as well. But then the girls start saying like, "Oh, I wonder like what hair color I'd look good with, whatever." And Nancy says she just wants a smaller ass. And all I could think of, it was such a dumb 90s girl thing to say. Also because she's pretty thin already. Like, what are you doing,
Yeah,
guys?
they don't really show off in a good way. They don't really show off the girls too much in this movie, and most of the time they're doing the very '90s, like tying a sweatshirt or something around their hips anyway.
Hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, it's such a '90s thing for women to not want a butt, which is it's such a
Or
like.
hips. Yeah.
Yeah, like I was going to mention, very similar to Clueless, where it was Brittany Murphy, right? That didn't Elton didn't like her because of her hips were too big, right?
Right. While she was wearing a crop top. Yeah.
Mm-hmm,
Like,
yeah.
I just, yeah, yeah. Exactly. That's exactly how it landed to me. It's like, you guys are all attractive enough to be working actresses in the 90s. Like, none of these lines land. So, there's this scene back in the shop where Nancy picks up a book and it's about invoking the spirit. And we learn later that it's something about bringing Mano like into you, becoming more powerful. But Nancy opens this book and there's a picture of like a beach scene. And
Hmm.
when she looks at it, it starts moving. And I don't understand what this is supposed to be. Is it basically telling her she should like go do this? Because then they later do go to the beach and invoke
That's
the spirit.
about the only thing I could think of. She's looking at it, and then she's like immediately like, "I'm buying this." Like, and she didn't even
Hmm.
steal it. She's like going up and buying it. She wants to purchase the
Yeah.
book. I feel like it could be a way of this Mano calling to her, or maybe
Hmm.
she's seeing what she wants to see.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
true.
There's a few things that they don't like explain, and that's one of them. And just like I kind of, you just kind of go with it. Like I'm, if anything, like she's just getting like slowly more powerful before
Hmm.
she like really gets her power, and maybe it's just something that she can do now.
I think this is also where the shop owner warns Sarah that like whatever you put out into the world, it comes back times three,
Hmm.
which I struggle with this a little bit because I understand she's trying to say like Nancy's moving too fast, she's doing too much. But I also feel like she's almost warning them against any spells, which doesn't really make sense because like they're witches and they're learning magic.
I felt like it was more a warning against like these kind of vengeful, hateful spells. Like,
Okay,
you're going to put
that's
that out
right.
to the world, it's
Like they're
going to come
putting
back at you.
negativity out.
Yeah, and that's, you hear that in other cultures and religions, and
Hmm.
not wishing bad or evil on other people because it will come back to haunt you.
Yeah.
But how does this shop owner know what they're doing or what they have done? I don't know. Maybe because she has witch power too. Who knows?
Well, I'll get into that a little later after in a little bit when we talk about that beach scene. But okay, so we get to I don't know, this kind of like dramatic West Coast looking beach. Like you have some cliffs and caves and rocks and whatnot. This apparently was the screenwriter's favorite because you have all the elements in this scene. They made a fire on the beach. So you have the fire, you have earth, air, 'cause it's windy, and water. Obviously, they're at the beach. Apparently, this was the scene where everyone that worked on the movie seems to agree that quote unquote weird stuff happened. They kept getting their set washed out by the waves, even though they were working with a park ranger. They knew kind of where the tide came in the furthest at this time they were filming, and they built their set appropriately away from the tide so this wouldn't happen. And then every time they'd start filming it and the girls would start chanting, the waves would get a lot wilder and harder and come up further and further, and they kept washing out the scene. And they said there's even a point in the final cut of the scene where the camera's whipping around really fast in a circle, and you're it's supposed to be disorienting. You can actually see waves put out the fire, and that was real and unintended because they thought
Hmm.
they had built this scene far enough away that this wouldn't happen.
This guy was invoking some Wiccan stuff. He was warned on several movies ago from that lady, and
Hmm.
now they're doing these chants, which they had a technical advisor on there, so these chants are probably somewhat real, maybe. And
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know. I for some reason thought this might have also been the same beach from I Know What You Did Last Summer. It just looked eerily similar, but maybe because
It
it's
might
just
just be like a West Coast, like it was all California coast, right? So
yeah.
the East Coast was not dramatic enough, which like I understand, but
Yeah, the East Coast didn't take enough acting lessons.
okay. So this is where they invoke the spirit, whatever this means. They all wake up the next morning, and Nancy's literally walking on water out in the ocean, and then they see just past these like rocks where they are, all these sharks have washed up on the beach. And Nancy is obviously like cracking up at this point. She's like, these are my gifts from Manal, whatever. I guess my interpretation of this with the, whatever you put out, you get back times three. All this power she took in had to come from somewhere, and it caused these animals to die off, like a big group of animals.
Yeah, I guess I didn't
I
think of it that way.
I guess I don't know why. I my interpretation is we're not supposed to think these were actual offerings or anything that Nancy's saying.
No, I
Um,
didn't think that. No, I
yeah,
just thought something weird had happened because didn't she like get struck by lightning or something the night before? And
I
then she
think
comes
she
back
did.
and she's like on the water, like you said.
Yeah.
So I just kind of took it as just kind of a scary slash weird omen. Like these, just all these. I think there were maybe
Mm-hmm.
a whale or two, but definitely like there's a big shark. There's a hammerhead in the background.
Mm-hmm.
I just took it as like something bad is happening because you know invoked the
Mm-hmm.
powers that be.
This, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that too. We are supposed to get the impression it's bad,
Hmm.
regardless of what exactly it is. And this is also where we start to see Rochelle feeling bad for what she did to Laura. Laura's still losing her hair and she's miserable. But I kind of hate this scene where Laura's like in the shower at the locker room and she's like, what did I do to deserve this? And it's like, well, you actually weren't that nice of a person, Laura. Like, I don't know
True.
like one for one, what you deserve, but I don't know. Why are we pretending like she wasn't like totally fucking with Rochelle and screwing up her diving performance constantly?
Right. I liked it because it shows like Rochelle being a little bit more human.
Yeah. Hmm.
She wanted something bad to happen to her high school bully, and then as it's happening, kind of regrets doing that, even though
Hmm.
it's probably deserved, sure. But
Hmm.
you know, maybe she does not exactly want to do an eye for an eye anymore. It made
Sure.
her feel it made her feel bad.
Yeah. And I also remember this part where she ends up looking in the mirror next to her and her reflection looks away from her.
I actually wrote that as a note. I'm like, did was that supposed to be a delay? Did I like miss that?
No,
Because
I
like she
think there's.
turns to look and then okay, I see what you're saying. I didn't even catch that. I just saw she like
Mhm.
turned to look in the mirror and then the mirror like turned also. I was like, wait, was that a delay? Then I just didn't realize the reflection was looking away from her. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Like, can't look at yourself in the mirror. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess for Bonnie, we see more of an attitude shift, I guess, because I know Sarah calls her basically a narcissist at some point. Like she's been really rude or something ever and full of herself ever since her surgery was successful. Again, I feel like there are more egregious like
Yeah.
things that one could be. I don't know. I don't know. I don't feel like Bonnie and Rochelle necessarily asked for anything so horrible. Especially not Bonnie.
I was confused with Bonnie because at one point, maybe it was at the sleepover or something. I think one of the girls is like putting stuff on her back, like when she still has the scars, maybe
Hmm.
medicine or whatever. And she's like hugging her knees and kind of like chanting to herself, like how she just wants to be beautiful outside and in.
I thought they were doing a spell to like make it work, to make the medical procedure work.
Right. But she said outside and in. And then she just kind of, it's like, if it was just, I
Oh,
want to be beautiful on the outside and like kind of like
so
careful
it's
what
like
you wish
she only
for.
got one of them. I see.
Yeah.
Made her ugly on the inside. Okay.
Yeah, it's like she asked for both though. I don't know. It's weird.
Mm, interesting. But yeah, why else would you put an emphasis on that, like the outside end in? Because, like,
Mm-hmm.
I see. Okay. No, I think you're right there. And throughout all of this, we've seen Chris like basically following Sarah around like a puppy dog. I did think it was funny, I mean, funny, not funny, when he shows up outside her window at night and he's just like going on about how, like, I was just thinking about you and I can't sleep and I think about you all the time. And he's just like almost talking to himself. And she's like, okay, bye, I'm going to bed. But I feel like we see a little bit of Sarah's hesitation with the girls. Like she doesn't like how particularly Bonnie and Nancy are acting, I feel. And she does call them out on it a little bit, like you especially Bonnie, like you used to be a nice person. What's going on with you? And then Nancy's like changing traffic lights and while they're driving, and Sarah feels like she's sort of abusing her power. Like you shouldn't use it to do these like silly little things like get out of a red light.
Right.
um, but I feel like we don't understand the extent of this until she's on this date with Chris. I guess she decides to give him a chance or something. I also wonder if she thinks this is going to speed up the spell wearing off, because I know the shop owner says something like you just have to let it run its course.
Right.
But Sarah is basically monologuing to him that the girls just turned their backs on her because she had some criticisms. And I guess I did not realize they were literally on the outs until she's saying it to Chris.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of weird too because they didn't really even have like a fight. They were like
Yeah.
talking in the car, I guess some minor disagreement at best. And she's like, "Oh, you shouldn't do that." And
Yeah.
he's like, "Well, I'm gonna do it." It's like, "Well, I don't know if we should. You used to be nicer. Now you're just like cocky." But to be fair, she was feeling herself, so you know what? Let her feel herself. And then Rochelle's just like, "I'm sad because I have regret." And then so you would think it would be like a 2-on-2 thing, if anything, but
Yeah.
they kind
Yeah.
of wrote
Because
Rochelle back in.
Rochelle is definitely the only other one having regrets aside from Sarah. And Sarah's almost more annoyed, I think, than her regret isn't like, oh, I did this to another person that isn't genuine. It's more like, oh my God, Chris is so annoying.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is, I forgot entirely that about this scene, and I forgot about him attacking Sarah. Like I remembered that something happened where he made a move on her or came onto her in some way, because I obviously remember like the revenge scene that's coming up in a bit. But
Mm-hmm.
I forgot that part of his like being so head over heels in love with her was that he doesn't control himself around her and very much like attacks her and chases her out of the car. And Sarah, I guess, ends up at one of their houses, and then they're all friends again because they agree that like Chris is a horrible person and should die.
Right.
Nancy especially is like flying off the handle, like we gotta teach him a lesson. Everyone's like, no, that's okay.
Yeah.
um but I remember this scene so well when Nancy shows up at this house party and like pretends to be Sarah. She does the glamour spell so that he thinks he's making out with Sarah, and then real Sarah shows up and he realizes it's Nancy. That is probably the one part I remember just as well as like the "We are the weirdos, Mister" line. Yeah, poor Chris
I,
falls out a window.
yeah, I remember that part. Nancy going crazy and shaking her head all
Mm-hmm.
crazy like and sped up, and
Mm-hmm.
the part where she like floats towards him and like there's like close
Mm-hmm.
up of her. Now she's wearing witchy shoes, by the way. They're
Yeah, yeah.
very pointed shoes, and it's like dragging across the carpet. I remember both of those from the trailer as a kid
Yes.
going, "This looks kind of fun and scary and I kind of want to see this."
Yeah, I definitely remember her toes dragging on the carpet and she levitates and I don't know, spiritually, magically pushes Chris out the window. But after this, we see a further falling out. And there's this part where Sarah's in her bed and the girls like fly in through her bedroom window. And
Mm-hmm.
that did actually make me jump because it's just very quiet. And then all of a sudden it's like boom through the
Yeah.
window. And then, later the three of them confront her in the bathroom, and they make it very obvious that they were like in her dreams, that they're doing all this on purpose. They like know her thoughts somehow. They know that Sarah did a binding spell on Nancy. I guess watching it back this time, I'm surprised at how completely they turn on her, especially Bonnie and Rochelle. But now that you made that point about Bonnie, I think I'm just more so surprised about Rochelle because she has at least felt some hesitation about the things that she has been doing.
Right.
And also I still don't really understand what Sarah did that's so bad.
she is getting in the way of Nancy being all powerful, I guess. Like, because she's telling them to slow their roll.
Mm-hmm.
What is confusing to me is that without her, they don't make four. So I don't know if they care anymore now that they have power or Nancy has power.
Yeah, I think they have enough power that it doesn't matter.
Sure.
Um, Especially with like Nancy invoking the spirit and whatnot. It's funny too watching this, having I don't know, grown up and gone through life as a teenage girl, and it's like, okay, you're on the outs with your friend group. Like it's very Mean Girls, but with magic. Like the stakes
Like,
are so much higher.
yeah, I feel like getting mad at someone in this scenario is a little more deadlier.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But Sarah goes back to the shop owner, finds out her mother was a witch. This shop owner knew this from the ring Sarah wears that's from her mom. I don't know.
Something about the picture too. She kept looking at the picture of her mom. I don't know. Did it move at one
Yeah,
point? Am I making that up?
no, it did move at one point, but that was
Okay,
more when like Sarah was like losing the battle with Nancy. I think it was her mom being like, "You can do this."
got it. Okay, yes,
Yep.
yes.
But so the shop owner tells her that she has to invoke the spirit, even though she had said before that was dangerous. Also, still don't like that the spirit is a him, but we're just gonna keep going with that. I remember this part so well when Sarah gets home, turns on the TV, and it's, we find out later it's magic, but there's a news report about her dad and stepmom having died in a plane crash. And just we roll into that whole crazy ending scene with the other three attacking her. There's snakes and bugs all over the house. I don't want to go too much into the suicide stuff, but basically, Sarah had tried to commit suicide before, and Nancy comes by to like convince her to do it again or like make it look like she has done it. And they write her own suicide note, which is like a very bad suicide note. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah, I mean, not that we needed an explanation, but early in the film, we do notice that Sarah's got some scarring
Hmm.
from trying to, commit suicide, and then they talk about it a little bit here and there. They never say as to the why. I wonder if there's anything to do with her mother presumably passing.
Her mother died in childbirth. We
Oh, so
do
then never
find
mind
that
that.
out. So I think there was some guilt she was having, and just obviously like you never got to know your mom and all that. Basically their end game is to try to convince Sarah to kill herself, or they're going to kill her for turning on the coven. I did think it was interesting though that when we first noticed Sarah's scars on her wrist, they're like, you even did it the right way, which I will say as a young person watching this, I was like, oh, I didn't know there was a right way. So like kind of understand that R rating, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
Adult themes,
yeah.
which we will get into in a sec. But then when they slash her wrists later, like they do it for her, it's the other way.
Hmm.
And also her suicide note is like, I killed Chris, I'm sorry, bye.
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
is a
pretty much.
one step up from the guy in Batman Forever.
uh, yeah. That's such a good note.
I
Oh
don't
man.
even know. This scene is so intense. Like, I don't even know what else to say about it. Just that apparently all the bugs and snakes they used are real. They had snake wranglers bring like 10,000 snakes or something, and they
Jesus.
they know that they did not get them all back. uh
Whoops.
yeah. So the director had a quote in an interview I read that was like, yeah, if you see some snakes hanging out like in this area of LA, it might be like the descendants of like the ones in The Craft, like famous movie star snakes. But yeah, again, the special effects here are really something. That dual, like, I don't know, that fade of like Sarah's face while the glass is breaking and the mirror around her, and like when Nancy starts seeing everything and her fingers turn into snakes.
Yeah, that was real fun.
That was something.
And like in her mouth too, or something weird like that, and
Yeah.
it looks. it doesn't look great.
No, it does not look great. And everyone in all the interviews were talking about how all the special effects were like so cutting edge at the time.
Probably were.
I mean, I guess at the time, yeah. I always remember the bit where the dresser like slams into Sarah and
Yeah.
then Nancy's trying to find her like under this mound of clothes and it's like her flat like school uniform without a body. Then like
Hmm.
she materializes back into it.
Yeah.
And just one good kick and Nancy's done for.
the There's a Mano kick or something.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, well, she invoked the spirit. That's why.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, she did it while she was like dying or whatever. I did read that the actress that played Sarah, Robin Tunney, was fine with the bugs and the snakes and everything, but she couldn't do the part where the rats fall on her. She had to have a stunt double for that.
Fair enough.
I don't know, man. I think the part that gets me the most is when like the maggots or whatever they are coming out of the vents and you just see them like plopping like little by little on the floor.
Yeah.
That's what has always bothered me.
I don't know which one would bother as an actor, which would bother me the most because like I don't hate those things or have like a fear of them, but I also don't want them all over me either.
Right.
I feel like maybe I think the snakes and rats would bother me a little bit because of like if I did something to scare them and they would bite me, I don't want that.
Oh, that's
But the
fair.
idea of having bugs all over me and not knowing like did I get them all off or what parts of me are they
Yeah.
crawling all over or into or it's
Yeah.
that part's weird too.
Yeah, see, I don't love bugs, but I really don't like spiders.
Hmm.
So for me, they do show tarantulas at some point, but it also the tarantulas kind of seemed contained like in a planter, so maybe that would be okay. I don't know. See, I wouldn't mind a snake being on me. That's better than like eight legs.
True.
And just a little side note, this fight between Sarah and Nancy won the best fight at the MTV Movie Awards that year.
Think we talk about more films that win things from MTV Movie Awards and other award shows.
Wonder why. But also, I feel like MTV was such a huge part of our culture growing up. Like, that's probably how I heard about this movie in the first place, if we're being real. Like,
That's a good point.
MTV was such a big deal. MTV Movie Awards, the VMAs. So I don't think that's a coincidence at all.
No,
Despite the
not at
point that
all.
I understand you are alluding to. Again, with the special effects, this last scene when Rochelle and Bonnie kind of pay Sarah a visit in the driveway of her house, they say something about like, oh, she probably doesn't have her powers anymore anyway, and lightning strikes a branch and it falls right in front of them. Another wonderful special effect there.
Yeah. Well, was it pre-fight when all three girls were in Sarah's house and Sarah that is does like a glamour spell and the two girls see themselves in the mirror and like
Yeah.
that threefold thing comes back and like
Mm-hmm.
Bonnie's entire face is covered in scars, looks like Freddy Krueger, and
Mm-hmm.
Rochelle's hair is falling out to like
Mm-hmm.
mimic Laura. And, like they kind of flee, like, oh, you know what? We're done. We don't want bad things to happen to us.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
then they come crawling back, like, oh,
Basically,
well,
yeah.
like, just kidding. And Sarah's like, nah, bro. And clearly the other two ladies don't have their powers anymore. So I think maybe they were groveling not just to like actually befriend Sarah again, but like they wanted I think they assumed Sarah might still have powers, and I think they wanted to kind of cozy up to her still because now that Nancy's gone and their powers are gone, they need somebody.
So I agree with you. It's like it made me think of Mean Girls when they take down Regina George and then the other two in the group are like, okay, Katie, what are we doing? Like they need a leader. Again, I did feel a little sympathy, more so for Rochelle, I think, because she's the one who kind of calls Nancy out at the very beginning of the attack, like, okay, we scared her. This is like all too much. Like, we should stop it. But again, doesn't really stop it until it looks like it's affecting her. So I get it. I also wondered if Bonnie's scars had maybe come back because when they walk up to Sarah, she's wearing like long sleeves again. I don't know if that was supposed to symbolize anything.
Hmm. Yeah, I wonder. Which again would kind of, play into my point about wanting someone with power so she can get rid of him again.
Hmm. Yeah, that too. But yeah, they definitely, like you said, they come crawling back. They're wondering if she still had her powers. And it is so ridiculous where they're like, yeah, we just wanted to say sorry about all that. And Sarah's like, oh, and you tried to kill me. And they're like, yeah, that. But
Yeah.
then when they walk away, they turn into such mean girls and like, oh, she probably doesn't even have her powers anymore. Maybe they don't seem as bad because I'm thinking of how bad Nancy is. I don't know. But I still have some sympathy for them, I guess. But yeah, in the end, Nancy ends up in an institution. Like she's had a complete mental break, it seems.
Well, they put a binding spell on her, and she is literally bound to her bed.
Ah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
And you know, I think maybe I'm only making the connection now because you had mentioned the note in Batman Forever, but it's like, it'll beat me to the punchline. Hold on a second. But like the Riddler at the end says he knows who Batman is, and they ask him, it's like, "Oh, it's me," and no one believes him. But like he really does know. And then in
Mm-hmm.
this movie, she really was a witch and really can fly, and she's being tied down to the bed because they think she's mentally unwell.
Oh yeah, look at
Yeah,
that.
that's not. I mean, it's not laughable, but it is when you make these stupid comparisons.
No, it's laughable just because you're thinking of Batman Forever. It's fine.
And Jim Carrey, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It would be cool if she. I mean, it would be a different ending, but if like they showed the chains or whatever being pulled taut because she was actually like levitating again, that'd be kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
We talked a little bit about it, but it seems I don't know what we're going with here, but there's a lot of imagery of needles and glass,
Mm-hmm.
broken glass, reflections. I don't know if they were for the needles part making people squeamish, like making people uncomfortable on purpose. The broken glass again, I don't know. I'm kind of reaching here, but they just showed a lot of it, so there's got to be a purpose, right? Maybe the fragility of this coven. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, and I think maybe all the mirror stuff was just because they can do cool effects, like Rochelle looking away from herself, or the scene at the end, Sarah's like hiding from Nancy in the mirror. Like Nancy turns around and her reflection is her own back, but then it turns Sarah
Mm-hmm.
is the reflection. She turns around in the mirror and jumps out of it. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's just a way to do stuff like that with the
Mm-hmm.
cutting edge technology
Yeah.
and snake fingers. And,
Snake fingers. Yeah, I do think some of the reflection stuff is them not being able to look at themselves, so to speak, because of
mm-hmm.
the thing, like especially with Rochelle in that scene. But yeah, you're right. There's a lot of mirror stuff. I forgot about Sarah hiding in the mirror when they're fighting. I did just want to point out because I found this interesting. Feruza Balk is usually considered to be a practicing Wiccan, the actress who plays Nancy. The director even mentioned this in some interviews that she was Wiccan. She actually is not and never was. And I found a quote from her that she's, you can tell someone over and over again what's true, and they're just going to believe whatever they want to believe. So, whatever at this point. But I think it's so funny that the director even repeated this. Like, I could understand if it was a rumor that took off in the press or something, but her own director was wrong about it. Part of this, though, part of the confusion is that she did buy an occult shop in LA, partially due to having some familiarity now with the subject, having done the craft. She was the owner for a while. She ended up selling it in 2001. But I think that usually lends itself to the rumor that she's Wiccan. I don't know. People don't think you would own an occult shop for any other reason.
I guess there's that. I wonder if maybe the director was like scared of her. He had that warning from the one lady like several
Oh
movies
my god.
ago. Well,
Yeah.
like the beach scene where all the things were happening, going all crazy,
Yeah.
and even though they try to prevent it, maybe he was blaming her. Um, it's funny to me because she'll always be like the girl from the craft,
Oh yeah.
but it's funny to me that they accuse her of being wicked. She's like, no, 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 and then she owned a cult shop. But then, like
Hmm.
years later, she's in The Water Boy, and it's her
Hmm.
character is kind of similar as far
Oh
as like
yeah.
being kind of like Wiccan light. I don't know exactly. They
Hmm.
don't really explain it, but she does have some like mystical powers with water, and she
Hmm.
like threatens to like hurt people with her magic.
Oh right. Okay. Yes, I remember this now. I remember the water boy. But yeah, she's always the girl in the craft. It was like she was made for that role, honestly. Like, especially with how expressive her face is. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
her. I was watching it, and I was like, if they did a darker version of like a Harley Quinn movie, just her smile,
Mm-hmm.
it's so menacing, and but like you said, very expressive, and it like goes from
Mm-hmm.
like eyeball to eyeball, almost like a Cheshire cat.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So The Craft did 55.6 million worldwide against a $15 million budget. Apparently it was more of a slow burn, word of mouth hit, and then immediately it did very well on video too. Apparently everyone was upset it got an R rating, okay? And I would like to discuss this a little bit because I feel like they're all sort of living in a fantasy land about this. I'll read you the screenwriter's quote first. It's funny that the movie got an R, which I don't think it deserves. It had darker stuff that I think was taken out so that it could be a PG or a PG 13, and I think it would have reached a bigger audience when it first came out. It's crazy, really. The movie is designed for 16, 15, 14 year olds, not an R. I think it was given an R because of the theology. I don't know. I have no explanation. The director, similarly, had said that he was really frustrated. He purposefully like wasn't using the F word and wasn't including any nudity so they could avoid getting an R rating. And it's like the MPAA was just like, no, you have teens doing witchcraft, doing black magic, they called it. So like automatic R because of the themes in the movie. I guess my feeling is that they're still dealing with like dark themes. Maybe I think a PG 13 could have been reasonable. Where I really think they have gone off the rails is that the producer, Doug Wick, said now it would practically be a G rating if it was made today.
Mm,
Sir,
yeah, I don't know.
the he was arguing that it was just too shocking because no one talked openly about things like suicide and teen angst at that time, and everyone was so scared that they gave it an R rating. He even equated it to, witches being hanged, like their R rating was their hanging, like they were being unfairly persecuted.
Oh my.
And yeah, yeah. Um, I understand the whole following the rules to get a PG 13 rating, like the director said, they didn't use the F word. They didn't include things that you would normally associate with an automatic R rating. But talking so frankly about suicide, it's not that it was shocking, it's that those are actual, like, heavy themes.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I specifically remember being a kid watching this, well, 10-year-old, whatever, and being like, oh, there's like a right way to slit your wrists. That's not
Yeah,
necessarily information you want in the wrong hands, you know?
yeah. I
It
mean, that alone, yeah. I mean, if you cut that out, maybe could it be PG-13, or even if you left it in, but like with I don't know a warning or something. Yeah,
mm,
maybe. I just find this his quote or it's like it's designed for 16, 15, 14 year olds.
is it?
Does doesn't mention it's designed for 13-year olds and you're pushing for a PG-13 rating. And I know it's parental guidance
Sure,
13 and
yeah.
under,
But if
but
you want to be
like
literal, yeah.
yeah, you're not even trying to target your target audience at this point.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe today PG-13, uh, but also not mad
Yeah.
that it's an R. I guess if you're trying to, you're blaming the box office on the fact that less people saw it because it was not as accessible to the youths,
Hmm.
the young adults, if you will,
Yes. Yes.
then I get it, sure. But to me, 16, 15, 14, 13 are teens, 17 and up, 17 like 20 something.
Hmm.
That's the young
Hmm.
adults. That's what I think of. for at least for
Yeah.
movies. As you mentioned, books are a little different, sure, but also like you still made what 55.5 million against 15 million. So
Yeah, it's not like you did poorly.
right.
Um, and but isn't this always the struggle of teen horror movies in particular? You want a teen audience, but how do you not get an R rating? We saw this with I Know What You Did Last Summer. I'm sure we will see it in the near future with some of our upcoming episodes. This is always the struggle where you don't want a whole chunk of your audience to be like banned from the theater,
Hmm.
but then you're limited with what you can show, what you can discuss. And yeah, and I think it's fine that the craft didn't shy away from showing or discussing certain things, but when they talk about adult themes in movies, like sometimes they're kind of correct.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. Get off your high horse, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
it's fine. And the thing is, too, so with horror movies, for teen horror movies specifically, yeah, you just the genre alone is kind of putting you out of that PG-13 range,
Mm-hmm.
typically. And
Yeah.
then, but, in the 90s, and it shows here, it did better on video. Yeah, maybe they get a theater release, but they're going to hit big on video. Just like today now, it's more of like wait till it comes on streaming and then I can watch it because I already have this account and my mom doesn't know I'm watching this movie because I just log into her Prime or whatever. And I also think too at the time, the 90s, I don't know how strict theaters were on kids going because I remember I went to a few older movies and no one said anything to me.
The theater by my house had a policy for a little while where a parent could just sign your ticket, or as long as they were like with you when the tickets were bought, they didn't have to be there in the movie with you. And for a lot of things like scary movies, my friends' parents and my parents were like, well, it's just art because it's like supposedly scary. So they were like okay
Yeah,
with that.
I think at a certain age, let's say young teen, remember a couple times like getting dropped off and like buying a ticket for my son and his friends. It's okay; they're going to go see the movie. But then got slightly older, and I guess maybe it would depend on what the movie was. I think the ticket person was like, "Oh yeah, you're going to see the new Nightmare Before Christmas. You're going to see the new Nightmare on Elm Street or the new Jason movie or whatever." Like, cool, go. Like, it's just there might be some boobies and there's going to be a lot of people getting cut up, and like it's a horror movie.
Yeah.
Fine, sure. I think if it was more like adult themed stuff, I probably would need my parents. I get it's
Yeah.
also it's
You're
just
different.
being controlled by someone who's probably similar in my age selling me a ticket too. So
That too. Yeah.
yeah,
That's fair. So you had mentioned the TV show Charmed earlier, and that the credit sequence in the beginning reminded you of Charmed. Andrew Fleming, the director, he had written a sequel to The Craft that never went anywhere. He also wrote a television pilot to turn The Craft into a TV series. He wrote it for Fox. Fox passed on it. The WB expressed interest, but Fox wouldn't release the rights to them, even though they weren't going to move forward with it themselves. Literally every article, interview I read on The Craft, so many people involved with making The Craft agree that the WB and Aaron Spelling stole this idea and turned it into the television show Charmed. This includes screenwriter, director, the actresses. Rachel True and Robin Tunney are literally quoted as saying that like Charmed ripped off The Craft. They point out that the theme song for Charmed is apparently How Soon Is Now. Well, the cover of How Soon Is Now, it's a Smith song, but for The Craft, it was covered by Love Spit Love. And that is the exact same song, cover and all, that is in The Craft. That was apparently Andrew Fleming's idea for the theme song for his TV show that he pitched. They said the font was the same for the title.
yeah, yeah.
I have never seen Charm, so I don't know. I didn't even know that this was their theme song.
I didn't watch it like a show I would watch, but like I said, it's on sometimes. I
Yeah.
think my wife might have watched it, and I've seen her watch it on like a streaming service, or at least the first season, or at least until oh god, what's her name from Scream? She comes in, she replaces one of the actresses. But anyway,
Rose McGowan. Rose
yes,
McGowan. Yeah.
McGowan. Yeah, yes,
McGowan. Mm-hmm.
yeah. I definitely see the similarities there.
Mm-hmm.
Charmed is the PG-13 friendly version of The Craft. We have The Craft at home, so so maybe if you would have done it like that, you wouldn't have got that hard R, I guess.
Maybe.
They don't have a fourth though. They're three sisters. I mean, it's kind of, you can argue that Charmed is also like Hocus Pocus.
Rachel True, the actress that played Rochelle, said something like, and of course they made them all sisters for charm so they wouldn't have to cast anyone who wasn't white.
Oh, jeez. Whoops.
Yeah, that being said, Rachel True was often left out of marketing events and press junkets. The other three girls would be sent and not her. And it got so bad that the other actresses had to call the studio and ask to include all four of them. And basically, the actress is like, I don't know what else to make of it. You can argue they were bigger names than me. Like, Nev Campbell was definitely the biggest name at the time. You can argue that Sarah and Nancy like have the bigger roles, but she said it was hard for her to feel like she just wasn't being invited places because she was the only Black person in the cast. And again, like MTV Movie Awards, the other three girls were invited and she was not. I mean, I really don't understand that because they're the four main actresses, right? So
Not only are they not just the four main actresses, but the whole point of getting Sarah involved was to get their fourth girl.
yeah, you need
And
four,
it just
exactly.
seems weird to exclude that. And yeah, maybe some of those things are truths. The other actresses had bigger, important roles and are more famous.
Mm-hmm.
But even if those are truths, the other truth is it still doesn't look right, leaving out the only Black actress from the press junket,
Yeah.
despite her role or fame. It just doesn't leave a good taste in the mouth.
Right, exactly. She did say though that she and Nev Campbell became really good friends on set, which I thought was sweet. Like I had mentioned before, like Nev Campbell was probably the most well known at the time they were making the movie, but basically the two of them were together a lot because Fairuza Balk had more intense scenes that she had to prep for, and they weren't gonna go like she said, like goof around and like laugh about stuff when she had these more emotional things to prep for. And then also Sarah just had more scenes, or was in more scenes rather. So in terms of this sequel that went nowhere, Andrew Fleming's went nowhere, but Blumhouse made a sequel in 2020. There was a female director, female writer brought on for this one. Basically the same thing. A new girl moves to town, becomes friends with three other girls who are trying to find their fourth. It was a little confusing because I've never seen this movie. I think it's called The Craft Legacy. Yes. I had thought it was a sequel, but then other articles called it a remake. But it has to be a sequel because, spoiler alert, Nancy's in it a little bit. She ends up being the biological mother of the new girl, which I guess is why the new girl has powers.
Okay.
I watched the trailer, and it seems that they become friends with the new girl because she starts her first period in the middle of class. And then the three girls go to the bathroom to like comfort her. And she comes over and they do like a witchy, like, you're becoming a woman now kind of thing. And there's like a bath full of flowers. And I was like, well, that's a choice. Also, can't help thinking of Carrie anytime there's a situation like that.
Yeah, agreed. I remember this did come out. I think I might have saw like a trailer once for it. I never saw it as well. I never thought it was a remake just because of, I think, just the colon legacy. It just seems like it sounds like a sequel. Yeah, like, but maybe it was of a time, was it 2020? The whole requel things were kind of a big thing at that point.
That
So
is
maybe it
true,
was
yeah.
something to that caliber. I don't know.
And I think this was direct to streaming too. And also just coming out in 2020, it was probably really easy to miss, especially
Yeah.
like if it was direct to streaming, it was 2020. Obviously, some other things were going on, but also I don't feel like it was released to like a lot of fanfare necessarily. It wasn't like when Hocus Pocus 2 came out and there was like huge marketing around that.
Yeah.
But the X Files connection that I promised you,
Yes.
when the new girl moves to town, she and her mom are moving in with her mom's boyfriend and his three sons. The boyfriend is David Duchovny.
Excellent.
Yep. I had no idea that
Mm-hmm.
he was in. I had no idea he was in the sequel to The Craft. When we said we were going to talk about this movie, I like vaguely remembered there being a sequel, like kind of as I was making mental notes of things to look into for the episode. But it's weird how confusing it ended up being to figure out like what it really was, like remake or sequel. And there was a point where I was like, am I going to have to watch this freaking movie and like make my own decision because I couldn't find it was like every other review I found called it either or and I'm like, well, I don't know what is accurate here. This is weird.
Well, if part of the story is the new girl is Nancy's daughter, then that would make it a sequel. Yeah.
Yeah, it can't be a remake then. Well, but I didn't know about that part until I read more into it.
Oh,
Um
gotcha. Gotcha.
yeah, but it was more so like when I was just trying to be like, okay, what year was this released? What was the basic story? It was almost like they were using the terms interchangeably. And I was like, well, let me watch the trailer and see what it seems like. And at first, like I said, they show the whole obviously sped up, but like meeting the girl, inviting her over and all that. So I was like, oh, maybe it is a remake because you can see how it's all happening. But then literally in the trailer, they show the one girl looking at a picture of Nancy, like from the first movie. And so I'm like, okay, well, this is a sequel.
Right.
So
Well, maybe we're just victims of 2020 lazy movie review writing. Maybe they didn't even watch the trailer. Like, yeah, it's here's the plot. Clearly a remake.
that all being said, uh, did this movie hold up for you?
Yeah, I think so. I believe we did have it at home on VHS, so I watched it more than once. But since being of that age, I don't think I've seen it ever since. And there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
things I forgot about. It's like one of those movies I watched not a lot, like a comfort movie watch, but more than like I had it on VHS, so more than a normal movie I would go rent. But then I just kind of forgot about it for a while until we started discussing picks for this season. I remember a lot of the stuff that were from the trailer, the things we've already talked about, plus like the scene where they make Rochelle float. Like who doesn't remember that from the trailer?
Mm-hmm.
But I think overall, just I think as like a good '90s young adult horror movie, it holds up. I like I said earlier, the costuming to me is more believable, even when like their magic is strong and they're feeling confident and they are dressing differently, not like when we first see them, but it's not over the top still to me.
Yeah.
Um, it's still believable. Even the guys, like all the secondary characters, even though their background, it still works. Like we're in Clueless, like everyone was dressed really cool. Even people just
Yeah.
walking around in the background, they had no lines at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I think it holds up for the movie from its time. There was some nostalgia factors. There were some laughs at things I didn't remember, like the snake fingers. Didn't remember. I
Yeah.
don't know how I forget about snake fingers, but I did.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, like I was a bit surprised at honestly how bad some of the special effects looked. I know everything eventually probably looks dated, but this was really striking to me this time. Like we said, I was struck at the how much discussion of suicide is in it. I don't know if I just forgot about it or if I'm just watching this, like I said, as a parent who, my kid's a few years younger than I was when I saw this. I don't know. Just make sure you're discussing things with your kids. They learn about the stuff from the movies. That all being said, I think it absolutely holds up as like just a solid 90s time capsule, like definitely something that was an introductory horror movie for me, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
Um, but also, you had mentioned at the time when you saw the trailer that you thought it was so cool. And I remember thinking that too. And I do think part of it was, apparently it was really rare to have these female led movies. And we've basically covered the two main ones of the time now, this and Clueless.
Yeah.
I don't think I realized that this was a big deal when I was younger, but
I
looking
did
back
not.
now, yeah, it's when do you see a bunch of women leading a movie? It's probably usually a witch movie.
Huh. Damn.
Yep.
Yeah, I think to further my appeal in this movie as a kid, I know it came out the same year, but prior to Scream. But I think I remember seeing trailers for it and not thinking much of it, or like, yeah, it looked cool, but I was too young to go see it in theaters, obviously with the rated R
Mm-hmm.
rating. But somehow was able to see. I think I saw Scream first. Somehow, I think it's one of those we know what it's going to be as far as like
Mm-hmm.
slasher horror movie genre, and we watched that, and then remembering like seeing it at like the rental shop, like seeing Nev on the cover, like, oh, girl from Scream. Let's check
Yeah.
this movie out. So I think I saw it the other way around, Scream being first, but I think also Scream had more money behind it as far as marketing goes as well. But just speculation.
We might talk about it later.
No,
All right. Do you have anything else to add?
I think we're good.
Okay. Well, we would love to hear your thoughts on the craft as well as your own favorite Halloween films. You can find us on Instagram at Back Through the Lens Pod and on Facebook at Back Through the Lens. You can also email us at backthroughthelenspodcast@gmail.com. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please leave us a rating and review. It's the best way to support our show.
If you enjoyed our show today, please give us a like and follow for updates on new and future episodes. Our show is produced by our hosts, Rachel Campbell and myself, Joe Siomick, with additional help and support from Peter Telep of LPV Productions. Peter, Rachel, and I are also the executive producers. Our awesome logo is brought to you by Tom Faraci, and our wonderful theme song is by Matt Tarek. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more trips into our movie watching past on Back Through the Lens.
Between this and the trigger warning, my search results are going to be like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Oh, yeah. Someone's about to call help for me. P.S. Witches.